Hello and welcome to Legalise Vaping by Legalise Vaping Australia. I'm Emilio Garcia and I'm here with Brian Marlow, who heads the entire enterprise. Brian, how are you? Good. So, we were excited last episode because we're seeing a lot of momentum behind the vaping movement in Australia. Obviously, Greg Hunt totally rescinded his plan. He pushed back his plan to ban nicotine imports for 6 months. We showed what the vaping community is politically actually made up of, and so we were feeling good. But now, Parliament, it turns out, is not coming into session when we thought that it was. So is that going to have an impact on the way, on our potential to legalise vaping in Australia?
Yeah, look, potentially. Because they're delaying when Parliament resumes, it means that you will then have fewer parliamentary sitting days in which to then try and enact policy change. So it puts us on the back foot a little bit. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but you know, people listening, vapers and vape shop owners alike, need to be acutely aware of that and be willing to get more involved. Because the incorrect thing is they say we've got 6 months, right? Well, yeah, it's 6 months until January 1st. Well, it's less now, but from July 1st until January 1st, it was 6 months. Mm-hmm. But it's not 6 months of parliamentary sitting time. It's about 3 or 4 months of parliamentary sitting time. So we've got a very narrow window to push some things along. Yeah. And if we just get complacent and sort of rest back on our laurels,
we could be...
Well, we'll be in the same fight again come beginning of January at a time when parliamentarians tend to be on holiday.
Yeah. It could be a worse fight, actually, because, this was postponed to make sure that, the excuse we had is basically Greg Hunt circumvented the parliamentary system. It was basically just a middle finger to voters and to the power of legislators. But if it happens when Parliament is in session, we don't have that case to make. We wouldn't be able, supposedly, to enact a delay the way that we were this time.
Yeah, so and even if
it's a different fight. No?
Even if we wanted to delay it again come January 1st, it's at a time when most parliamentarians are on holiday.
Exactly.
So it would be much harder to coordinate. So we can't just assume that that's something that we can do. We need to assume that January 1st is,
Armageddon.
Yeah, Armageddon.
I think that's reasonable. And so are we going to have to see a new mobilization? The way that we basically started tweeting, calling, emailing, all of these things that we were doing from day and night over the week where it seemed like this ban was going to take place. Are we going to have to see a similar mobilization?
Yeah, we also need volunteers. So people that are willing to not just make phone calls, not just send tweets and things like that, but if you're local to our office, come into our office and help out with some stuff. If you're willing to come to Canberra at some point, if we're allowed to go to Canberra, things seem to vary. Or come to a Zoom meeting with a politician, please do so, because they need to get some direct engagement from people that are actually within the vaping community that are directly affected. They listen to me. Yes, they listen to other pro-vaping advocates, but for every story I tell a politician, something coming from directly from a local constituent who is a vapor is worth 10 of those.
Yes, correct. And there's always a passive understanding among politicians. This person talking to me does not represent one person.
Yeah, correct.
For every person that comes and talks to me, there's many more quiet ones who are dealing with the same situation. Who just haven't come here.
Correct.
Which is, by the way, why when their offices were shut down, because of all the calls they were receiving from vapors, they understood it wasn't that we got 100 calls and thus 100 vapors are upset.
Yeah.
These are the 100 people who actually picked up the phone.
To make a call.
For them, there might be several more who feel the same way, who will vote against us if we don't do anything.
Yeah, I think to put it into context, like a politician won't take notice if they get one email on an issue. Once they start getting 5 or more emails on an issue, they know that that's something that is widely cared about.
Yes.
So you're not talking about huge numbers, and it's simply because of the attrition rate. So it's like they know that in order to get 5 emails, probably 1,000 people signed up to a petition or something like that. Yeah. And then those 1,000 people got an email saying do X, and then of them, only 200 people opened the email, and then of those 200 people, 20 people looked at the link, and then of those 20 people, 5 people sent an email. So they know sort of how the math works on that.
Yeah.
So when a politician goes, "Oh, I've received a few emails," that might sound deflating, but a few emails or a few phone calls on an issue is actually a lot for a politician, and most of them are acutely aware of that. Especially
considering the amounts that we managed to get out there. I mean, this is something that doesn't really happen in politics in a lot of parts of the world, let alone Australian politics, which tend to be a little bit more chill and laid back. But I think one of the interesting ideas to start to consider now, which is, the possibility of actually coming down to a legislative fight for vaping, is what would potentially vaping look like in Australia? What could be the model? And I think some people are thinking, well, it's going to be far more restricted than some of the places like the UK and New Zealand. I think some people have like a very flowery idea that it's going to be just basically open the doors and let's just.
Yeah, well, it definitely won't be that. We want to see a model that's quite similar to the New Zealand regulatory model.
Yeah.
So essentially, in New Zealand, you can go into a vape shop and you can buy any kind of vape. You can buy, there is a pushback against flavors by anti-vapors in New Zealand, but at this stage you can still buy different flavors. And more importantly, in different convenience stores, you can buy like those, just click and go pod style vapes. So like a Caliburn or something like that. Because the more complex vapes, a convenience store worker doesn't really know how they work.
Sure.
So that's a good regulatory model to follow. I think Australian policymakers would be okay with the New Zealand regulatory model. They're naturally going to want to push for certain things. They're probably going to want plain packaging. Our response would be that plain packaging actually has a lot of perverse outcomes.
Correct.
But there's going to be give and take. So one thing I've been saying, and a lot of juice manufacturers agree, is like in Australia, if you're going to be selling nicotine juices, they can't be saying like cool mega Power Rangers grape flavor or something like that, right? If it's a grape flavor, it's just going to have to say grape.
Yeah, grape.
And if it's mango, it can't be like mega mango,
it just has to be SpongeBob mango.
Mango.
Yes, I think that makes sense.
So there's probably going to be some give and take on descriptors and things like that, and how they're packaged and whatnot. But most of the vaping industry is fine with that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk really quickly about what you mentioned in terms of plain packaging. Because sometimes, and I know this is something that we, just working in the policy space, have to deal with, people have a really hard time understanding why plain packaging is a bad thing.
Yeah. So, this brings you to cigarettes mainly, because cigarettes are plain packaged in Australia. But what you find is originally when you had, when you had like Camels or Marlboros or Benson and Hedges or whatnot, people would go in and buy cigarettes, and for whatever reason, some people just like Marlboros. I don't fucking know. All cigarettes seem the same to me. They all suck.
Yeah.
But some people liked Marlboros. Some people liked Camels. Some people liked fucking Winnie Blues.
Yeah.
And once you remove that different branding and that different packaging and different look and whatnot, smokers stopped buying the more expensive cigarettes because they went, well, they all look the same to me.
Yeah.
And instead of buying a pack of, ABC cigarettes for $20 for a pack of 10 or $20 for a pack of 20, there's XYZ cigarettes, which are which are a cheaper brand.
Yeah.
And it's $20 for 25 cigarettes. So then what ended up happening is people consumed more cigarettes.
Right.
So it was a net health loss.
They could afford to smoke more now, basically.
Well, it's not that they could afford. They were choosing the cheaper brands because there was no reason anymore in their mind, for whatever reason, to pick the brand that they originally liked, because it all looks the same. And then so what you saw was, there's numerous key tobacco companies in the industry. There's Philip Morris, there's BAT, there's... I don't know. There's fucking heaps.
Yeah, a few.
And what you saw was that the market share of the cheaper manufacturers increased when plain packaging was introduced. So all it did was benefit the companies that make the cheaper cigarettes,
right,
and cause smokers to consume more cigarettes. So it wasn't a health win. It might have sounded cool, like, we're taking the fight to tobacco, and they probably thought they were doing the right thing, but It didn't work.
And so what could happen potentially then if we push plain packaging here?
People just start buying cheap junk.
Yeah, because there are many juice manufacturers, many of which are our donors, who take the process of making these juices very seriously. Yes. They're very high quality. You make sure that, and I mean, obviously right now, the ones that are in Australia don't put nicotine in it. But, there's basically a standard of quality that would be undermined and would kind of grant a significant part of the market share to cheaper, less careful juice makers if they can't differentiate themselves.
Yeah, Australian juice manufacturers take their craft quite seriously, and a lot of them actually, have ISO level 5 production facilities and all that kind of stuff because they want to produce good juices. As a result of that, they tend to be a little bit more expensive than some of the international juices. And the issue is that if you just plain package them and they all look the same and you can't have any descriptors and people can't know what's in them and all that kind of stuff, well, people are just going to buy the cheapest shit that they can find. Yeah. And it's probably going to be produced by a random international juice manufacturer that doesn't meet basic consumer standards.
Yeah. I'll just take Blueberry, not Blueberry by this really good brand who really takes it seriously.
If you're looking at 3 blueberry flavors and they all just say blueberry and there's nothing for you to differentiate what's higher quality, you're just going to pick the cheaper one. And the cheaper one is most likely, the adage goes, you get what you pay for, going to be the shit one.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of unintended consequences when it comes to plain packaging. There's going to be some ground to give. Regulators aren't going to be happy unless it just says grape or something like that.
Sure.
But you need to allow vape manufacturers to show the point of difference in their product.
No, I think that's perfectly fair. I mean, we get bombarded just because I think there's a lot of cheap international brands that sell kind of within a gray area in Australia. And so our Facebook and Instagram pages get spammed by these people who are selling really shady looking, very cheap nicotine juices in Australia saying hey, can you put us on your page? To which the answer is obviously always no.
I mean, you get that all the time, right? Yeah. You also get it from those dodgy international SEO companies. And I always get a call from Trinidad and Tobago or something, and it's hi, do you need help with your SEO? Right. Just give us all of your information and we'll up your search leads or something. Engagement. It's just go away. We're not interested. We don't do pay to play. We don't fucking host stuff on our website in exchange for a fee. Yeah. Not interested.
But I think the main point that I'm making is if we institute plain packaging, then the difference between those people who don't even realize that we're an advocacy organization that actually doesn't sell any products and they're trying to sell some juice for $1.50 that looks really shady, God knows what's in there. Yeah. Their point of differentiation in a store is there's nothing different between that one and a really nice one put together with really good ingredients in a really nice facility.
This is the thing. So about a year and a half ago, I bought different nicotine juices online from overseas to show to politicians. Okay. And then I was showing them stuff that's manufactured in Australia. And the stuff that manufactured in Australia comes in a childproof bottle. It's a standardized bottle. It has the ingredients listed on it and all that kind of stuff. And these are things that vape shops do as a self-regulatory thing. There's no regulatory model in Australia that says they have to do this. They just do it because it's the right fucking thing to do.
Because there's no regulations.
But they're doing it themselves, right? They're trying to lead the way.
Yeah.
And the current regulatory model that says you can only get your nicotine from overseas creates the environment in which you can get dodgy products.
Yeah.
So I imported one from Mega Vapes China or something like that. It came... It didn't have any stickers on it. It was just a plastic bottle.
Oh my God.
It was just a plastic bottle with liquid in it. And I just had to assume that this was the vaping liquid that I got.
Yeah. It was in an old Fiji bottle.
But it was just in a shitty plastic bottle, right? No stickers or anything like that.
What, did it have childproof?
No, it just had a cap. Jeez. And I left it in my car for 20 minutes. Not in summer, mid-spring, so not a hot day. And the plastic had sort of collapsed in on itself. So that's leaching into the liquids, right? And it's anti-vapors say, we're trying to protect people. Well, the way you do that is to legislate these products and have consumer practices and say, hey, products that don't meet these standards can't be sold in this country.
Yeah.
The regulatory model that you're pushing allows for dodgy international producers that you have no jurisdiction over.
Correct.
I remember the Victorian Health Minister said... she said this was at a time when some nicotine juice came in that wasn't in childproof packaging, and a child unfortunately died, right? Because they consumed the nicotine liquid.
Yeah.
And then the Victorian Health Minister was like, these international manufacturers need to meet a basic standard of childproof packaging. It's like, yeah, sure, they do. But that's like writing to Pablo Escobar and saying, hey, put a health warning on your cocaine.
Yeah.
Like,
otherwise, the product that isn't legal here won't match our standards.
Yeah. It's like, it's outside of your jurisdiction.
Yes.
Legislate the fucking product.
Yeah.
Create the basic fucking standards, and you'll create the protection that you want.
Not to mention an industry here, domestically.
Yes.
Some money for your people.
Yes.
Well, I think we could go on and on about this, but our 15 minutes are up. So, Brian, as always, lovely to see you. And as per usual, thank you to our listeners for taking the time. We'll see you next week.
Bye.